If you are a man or woman of God and you are currently struggling with your body image or have full on body dysmorphia, and every time you look in the mirror, you just don't see someone that you believe is capable of fulfilling the purpose that you know God has placed on your life, then you have made it to the right video. My name is Tom, and I'm someone that suffered with body dysmorphia for over 15 years, and it completely impacted the way that I lived my life. And as I started to get towards the end of that, and I guess finding my faith and finding God, it really started to shift the way in which I viewed myself, viewed my body, and ultimately altered the solution to overcome my body dysmorphia. And I now work with a lot of people that are in the same shoes, right? It's this, we look in the mirror and we just see a body that is not what we want. It fills us with insecurity, with low self-esteem. We compare ourselves to others. We fear the judgment of others. We take on the words and expectations of the world around us and allow them to define us. And not only do we see the body that isn't in the shape that we want, but we're also then filled with that harsh inner critic, that inner voice that nitpicks our body, makes us sit in self-doubt, makes us sit in lack and scarcity. And when we combine all of this, especially as men and women of God that understand that we are here for more, we're here to deliver a certain purpose and have an impact on the world, it can be really hard to understand and know that at a spiritual sense, but then look in the mirror and actually see the person that is capable of fulfilling that. And that was something that I struggle with a lot with my body dysmorphia. Was I had all these visions for my life, these dreams for my life, right? None more than, becoming a husband and a father and ultimately building a business to help people. But when I would see my body, when I would listen to that voice in my head, I'd be like, well, I don't think I can create that. Like, how am I supposed to do that when I feel this way about myself? So before I get into, what I want to talk about in this video, I just want to let you know that it's okay, right? It's very, very common. And I think this is a natural struggle. And the perspective that I've chosen to take on that is that God wouldn't be giving you these challenges to overcome if it wasn't for the betterment of who you are, your character, and ultimately to help deliver that purpose for the world. Like whether that's in business for you, in your career, whether you're in the service of others in a business standpoint, whether that's to just be an example for those people around you, or whether it is family related, right? To be an asset, to be an example, to be the best husband and wife you can be, to be the best mother or father you can be, the best friend you can be, whatever you feel your purpose is. I'd be very confident in saying that these body image struggles that you are going through are actually really, really necessary. Now, for my example, obviously now being in the space where I'm helping people through their body image, both the physical and the mental aspect of it and the alignment of those two together, I wouldn't be able to do what I do now. I wouldn't have the wisdom I have. I wouldn't have the experience. I wouldn't have the physical results, the transformation results to actually facilitate this work if I hadn't gone through these struggles in the first place. So I look back at my body dysmorphia, the 15 odd years of it, with nothing but gratitude, nothing but lessons. And obviously that's a very cliche thing to say, as we wouldn't change a thing, but I genuinely wouldn't, especially now that I realize what God placed me here to do, right? What my purpose actually is. And these are the tests that we need to go through. These are the character refinements. And for me, it was because back in those body dysmorphia days where I didn't have a connection to God like I do now, I was very much impacted by the world and societal expectations and body norms, right? Especially getting into the fitness industry as a PT back in 2016, I was right in the midst of my body image challenges, and I was like, well, how can I possibly help people if, not that I was in bad shape, but in my mind I was. It's like, how can I possibly help people if this is the way I feel in my body? Like I feel like a bit of a fraud. And I was then sort of at the mercy of the worldly expectations and other people's opinions and the judgments. And, I'd get the comments on Instagram and they'd make me feel really bad about myself, and I would just spiral, over and over and over again. But as I've gone through that journey and overcome that and healed that, not only transformed physically to be in a body that I'm really confident in, but more importantly, letting go of and changing the core story and the internal narrative that was actually driving my body dysmorphia in the first place, it's got me to the point where I am now, where I'm able to truly be of better service for those people who need me, and also be an example to be like, I get it. I hear what you're saying. I understand what it feels like to look in the mirror and feel this complete disconnect between who you are and who you know you're here to be, and being unable to bridge that, right? Especially when we look in the solutions in isolations to body dysmorphia, like just the physical focus, just the weight loss focus, or just the talk therapy around it. Like these things in isolation are not going to work as effectively as, we want them to work, right? It's the alignment between the two. But to just show you that you can do it, you can move through it, and it wouldn't be given to you if it wasn't part of a bigger purpose, right? That is ultimately what I believe. And there are going to be a lot of people that be like, oh, it's not that deep, bro, or you just got to lose weight and get in shape. And to that, I'd say, perhaps in your world that is true, but I'm speaking to the God-led men and women that deeply want to be the person to show up and lead the way, right? For their family, for their clients, in their business, in their career, and for their loved ones. But again, they're so caught up in their own head. They're so caught up with this body dysmorphia narrative and looking in the mirror and just not liking what and who they see, fearing the judgment in the gym, being unable to stick to anything and be consistent, right? You probably have a ton of evidence to support the narrative that you aren't good enough, right? That you are failing, that you're never going to live up to that godly image that you actually want to uphold. And then you probably run the cycle of exploring where that actually ends up and how your life plays out. And that can put us in this really, really disempowered state. But yeah, first and foremost, like, we need to flip that perspective. You wouldn't be given these tests if you couldn't overcome them. And there is some lesson that you need to learn in the overcoming of your body dysmorphia, in the transformation, whether it's the physical aspect of it, or whether it is the mental and inner world and core story and overall self-image perspective. There's a lesson in there that you need to learn that you haven't learned yet. Right? I'm a big believer, if someone is really struggling to move through a specific challenge, like, yes, potentially their strategy's been off. Yes, there's always those unconscious blind spots in their internal world that they potentially miss. But overall, at the root of that is a story, is a lesson, is something, there is a gift in there that they haven't learnt yet that they actually need to take with them. Right? And for a lot of body dysmorphia related stuff, it is understanding your worth outside of just your body. Again, I'm big on reference point, right? The first part of my framework that I take my clients through, the 4S framework, the first S is source. So that is, okay, where am I actually getting my information from? How am I judging my success? How am I defining myself? And we have two options. We either choose the world, the expectations, the body norms. This is who I should be. This is what I should look like. We're giving our power away and we're outsourcing our worth to the world and other people, old relationships, family, our friendship circle, social media. When we do that, we're never going to feel enough. Our body's never going to feel enough. There's always going to be someone that looks better, that has more than us, whatever it might be. So when we outsource that, everything else, it's a flow-on effect. Everything else is going to be really skewed. But when our reference point is God, and we understand how he sees us and who he placed us to be, right? Then we can start to create the next three S's, which is story. So create the inner world to support that frame of reference from source. Then we go to strategy, and that's where we actually get into the actions, the training, nutrition, for example, in this case. And then we go to synergy, which is, okay, how can I actually start embodying this and living as this version of me in my day-to-day life? How can I integrate this new me into my day-to-day life? And it's in this journey that we take on these valuable lessons, that we are able to detach ourselves from who the world wants us to be. And we're able to be like, okay, what actually serves me in this scenario? What do I actually need? Who do I need to become to ultimately do the things that I want to do in life, to fulfill this God-given purpose, to be the best example for my family, be the leader for my family, right? But if everything was easy, if everything was just given to us, if we were born and we just had the best body from day one and it never changed, if we didn't have these internal battles and struggles to overcome, right, we would miss out on the blessing to actually learn things in this, right? I have such unwavering confidence, self-worth, self-trust, self-belief, the ability for me to just flick a switch when it comes to my body and lose X amount of kilos or whatever I need to do. right? But that's all come through the adversity and trials and tribulations that I've faced when it's come to my body image and body dysmorphia, right? In the surface level aesthetic stuff, but also in the deeper self-worth, self-esteem related pieces. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. So I think there is so much value in changing your perspective and understanding that if you continue to struggle with something and it's getting harder and harder and harder, that means there is a lesson. There is something there that you are missing that we need to actually overcome. And you wouldn't be given this if you couldn't handle it, right? Body dysmorphia as a whole. And this is, again, the methodology that I take into my clients. If you are struggling with your body image, the actual physical component of body image, overweight, just not liking what you see in your body, that is a direct reflection of your identity and core story, right? Like an actor has a script. We will then create a body image and perception of our body that deeply aligns with who we see ourselves to be. So if you've always been the person that's never been good enough, right? If you've had that repeated to you in relationships, you've had your family tell you that in certain ways, you've been cheated on, abandoned, right? You've got a ton of evidence in your past to support the fact that you are not good enough. So we then take that and we apply that to areas of our life, right, where we run the same story. So why would a person that is not good enough and deeply believes that's who they are and has all this evidence, why would they, be consistent and actually build a body that they love? And why would they actually be able to recognize that? Why would you be able to start living as this person that's good enough if you deeply believe that you aren't good enough? So the body and the transformation and the weight loss and whatever will take care of itself only when you fix the identity and that story and that script that you've been running. And one of the best ways to do that is to, again, remember that you are placed here by God to deliver a certain purpose and that you don't need to outsource your worth and your power and who you are to other people. But this is just normal in our world, right? This is what society pretty much normalizes and tells us we need to do, right? But again, if you're watching this and if you made it this far, you are a man or woman of God. And you know that you don't have to adhere to the limitations of the world. And it's in this part, it's in these first two S's that I mentioned, source and story, that you need to focus on so that when you look in the mirror, you genuinely see someone that is capable of fulfilling everything that you are here to do, right? You look in the mirror and you are filled with confidence. You don't have to convince yourself. You just see that in your physical body, but in that inner voice as well. Right, your voice and that inner critic is gone, and it's replaced by an ally that is on your side. And when we get this alignment, source, story, strategy, synergy, that is how we're able to actually then leave these things in the past, let go of the body dysmorphia, the insecurity, the self-doubt, the low self-esteem, and actually start showing up every day to impact the world, to be the best version of us for our loved ones that we can possibly be, and to do whatever else you want to do in your life. Right? Body dysmorphia is multifaceted. And again, I speak about this a lot in my content. It's unfortunate that the majority of people with it are only ever focused on the training program and meal plan, right? That's sort of step 3. Ultimately, yes, it's the end goal to change our body. We don't want to sit in body positivity, but we need to understand why that's there in the first place, what it's trying to teach us. And again, when you are a man or woman of God, you actually have an advantage here because you understand the difference between God-led versus world-led. Right? This is how we can start to solve this. So understand, you're here for more, right? That is without question. The calling and purpose you feel in your life is not a mistake. And the challenges you are going through, that disconnect you feel with who you see in the mirror right now, it's okay. And it's actually there for your benefit because on the other side of it is everything you desire. Right? So hopefully this message has made it to the right people. If you've enjoyed it, like, follow, all the usual stuff. There's a bunch of links and resources down below in the comments. So yeah, Instagram, TikTok's down there. My podcast is down there. And then mentorship, mentoring applications, all the bits and pieces are down there if you want to hear more of this content. But appreciate you guys tuning in and we'll see you in the next video.